Welcome back to Boring Build Friday. Today's build is a 2020 Griffin dump trailer. It's a 14-footer. Now it's only a year old, but it has been in the hands of a landscaper for that year, actually only about 6 months, and he's beat it up pretty bad. So we need to get everything fixed up because landscaping season's coming up and he needs some fresh equipment to start destroying. So let's take a look at it, see what he did to it, see what we're going to have to do to fix it, and get it all ready for him to destroy again. So we'll start with the biggest, most expensive oopsie. So when you buy a new trailer, they tell you after 500 miles to retorque all the lug nuts. And apparently, they tell you that for a reason. So this one wasn't torqued on, it was kind of loose. It was wobbling in there. So we got some oval-shaped lug nut holes in our wheel and missing a few studs here. We do have one lug nut that was hanging on, and that's no good. And our drum is actually kind of worn out, so we're going to have to replace the drum, all the studs, and the wheel. This is supposed to be flat, and it's supposed to have 3 clearance lights in here. Yeah, clearly it doesn't. It's got some wires, not sure where the lights went. This may not be totally his fault. This is actually kind of a design flaw with the trailer. So this is where the trailer pivots when it lifts. That's why this much of it ends up tilting down from right here. When it does that, if there's anything on the ground, if they're not dumping on a flat surface, it catches on this and bends it all up. Takes all the lights with it as well. But we need to pass the safety test, so we're going to have to do something with this. So maybe we can come up with a better idea, something a little more sturdy than this little flimsy piece of metal, which it's not really that flimsy. It's 1/8-inch steel, but apparently it's too flimsy to hold a trailer. Although it really doesn't matter that there's no lights here, because they wouldn't even work if you plugged them in. Apparently they just decided to drag this down the road and it wore through. Which leaves us with another design flaw in this trailer that we're going to fix. Now they also drug the plug for a little while. I might actually leave this because it looks like it might work. We'll see. If it works, we're not fixing it. Because as soon as I fix it, they're just going to break it again. They seem to take everything I fix as a personal challenge to break it again. We have the trailer breakaway that is broken away. It is on the side. I think we're going to move it up here, get it out of harm's way. And since we have to fix these wires that are broken, I think what we're going to do is put a junction box inside here. That way the next time they tear these up, I can just replace the pigtail from the front to the truck. And all the rest of this will be junctioned inside the box. That's what I've done on his other trailers. Works out pretty well since I keep seeing these things over and over again. And like I said, we'll move this up here. That way when things are hitting the side of it, don't ask me what, everything, if you want an answer, is what they hit it with. It'll be up on top. Hopefully it'll be a little more protected. It'll still function the same, it's just not over here. I've actually learned to stop asking how you destroy the spare tire mount that's pretty well protected in here. If I had to guess, I would say there was a bobcat involved, maybe lifting on this because they overloaded the trailer. That happens a lot. That's just my guess. So we're gonna have to straighten this out and put the spare on there. We did buy a whole wheel and tire to replace that other wheel that was bad, so we'll have an extra tire. We bought an extra rim, so we'll be able to make up the spare that this never had. Maybe that'll keep it from destroying that. Wishful thinking. The seam at the bottom of the spreader gate is just big enough for rocks to fall through. So we're gonna have to close that up. And since he doesn't use the spreader gate, I think we're just going to weld it shut. We're going to make it a non-spreading spreader gate. Now if you don't understand what I meant by spreader gate, this unlatches and then this whole assembly opens up this way and everything comes out the bottom. It spreads evenly across the back as you lift it up. as opposed to opening the barn doors and then everything just comes out the back all at once. They don't spread with it, they spread with the Bobcats. So basically this is just for hauling stuff around, dumping it out, that's it. So for them, it's more useful if we just prevent them from destroying it any further and keep rocks from hitting people's windshields. There's also supposed to be a bracket right here for the ramps for the Bobcat. And apparently it's some assembly required when you buy this because they're not here. So we're gonna have to put those on there. It's a little sketchy when you just set the ramps up there, because if the trailer or the Bobcat move a little bit too much, you end up falling off. And 2 feet doesn't sound bad, but fall off something that's 2 feet tall with a Bobcat. Yeah. Mr. Spotty's back. Looks like you caught the tail end of the contract negotiations. They seem to have went well. So my solution for that little bracket on the back was this 2x2 square steel tubing. It's 3/16 of an inch thick, so it should last a little bit longer than our 1/8 inch steel. It was the thickest I could go for the light grommets to fit in. Otherwise I would have gone with the 1/4 inch. We do have to drill one more hole in the top. That's where our wires are going to go through. So we start with our 1/8 inch drill bit, then we do the 5/16. Now we have our step drill. We're going to drill these as far as we can get that step drill to go through. It does start to bottom out, so we're going to have to switch to our bigger step drill. So I have a little free time. Let's work on the Mustang. Yep. 1 second. Gotta check the comments. Second comment in. What's up with the Mustang? Well, looks like it's another week. Sorry. Rules are rules. Now we have our bigger step bit. We'll drill these holes out the rest of the way. And we'll drill another one in the top for our wires to go through. Now we're going to use the reamer just to clean all the burrs off the edge so it doesn't chafe the wires and end up with it short. Clean it all up, give it a nice bevel. And there's our bracket. So now we'll go up to the front. Put our junction box in. Drill our mounting holes. This is just the 1/8 inch drill bit. I'm going to use a hole saw to drill the hole for the wire to come through. Now we can cut our wire off. Run the wire through and pull it out of the hole we just drilled. We did primer and paint the holes we drilled so they won't rust. So now we can put our junction box in there, bolt it into the frame. Now we can run our wire in there. There's a bracket that holds it in there tight. Just a little U bracket so it doesn't pull out of there. So we'll tighten that bracket down, hold the whole harness in. So we need to cut the flexible coating off the wires so we can expose the wires inside. Make sure you use the dullest razor blade you can find so you don't accidentally cut the wires, or anything else for that matter, except for your finger. Razor blades will always cut through a finger. So once our wires are bare, we can run that harness in there, and bolt it down, and we'll just put our eyelets on there, screw it all in. Now we're going to drill a hole. We're going to put a clamp for this wire up on top. this way, it won't drag underneath. They do put this trailer on different trucks, so sometimes the wire is a little bit long, and we don't want to have to repair it right away. So this will keep it out of the way. We can unbolt our old breakaway, and we'll bolt our new one in up on the top. Wire that into our little junction box. We're all good. So now we can move on to the back. We'll close up the gap in the splitter gate with our C-clamp. Now that's a real C-clamp. Now we'll put a tack in there. Then we'll move our C-clamp down a little further. Keep tacking it in as we move to the edge. The left side was pretty flat. The right side was bowed out a little bit. So we just need to keep moving down, keep it all flat. Throw another tack in it. And one more at the end. And now we'll just start tacking it all in. And that's what it looks like. I'm not going to run a bead down the whole length, because if for some reason they ever want to take this back off, probably because they destroy it, it will be very hard to get off. And I'll probably be that guy that's got to take it off. So I'm trying to be nice to myself. Now we can cut our bracket off here. Just a couple welds at each end. We'll use our breaker to knock them loose. Bend it down a little bit. Use our breaker as a pry bar. Use the wrong hammer. If you're going to misuse a tool, misuse all of them. Now that bracket's off, we can grind out the rest of the welds that were left, so we have a nice smooth surface to weld our new bracket on. Tube, or whatever you want to call it. But before we do that, we need to put our ramp brackets on. We'll line them up, measure them from the outside edge so we get them in the same place on both sides. Put the ramp on there, make sure we got it in the right spot. Once welded in, it's a little too late. So the ramp looks like it fits on there just fine. We'll slide it out of the way. We'll tack the corners in. Take our clamps off. Then we're going to close the door just to make sure it's not interfering with the door at all. So our ramps fit, our door closes. We're ready to completely weld it up. So now we'll do the one on the other side. Pretty much the same way. What do you know, this side fits too. Now we got our monster C-clamp. And we'll weld it up. That should hold it. But I'm not sure. So I welded another piece to the back, so it kind of makes a T to give it a little strength at the bottom. And hopefully if anything catches on the center, it'll slide down that T and not catch the whole bracket and pull it off. That's my theory anyway. We'll find out how it works. I'm on fire! So now we're going to straighten out our spare tire mount. Turns out this has one of those new convertible toolboxes I was unaware of. We're going to have to fix that too. So we'll just put a clamp in there, and we're going to raise the dump body up, and we'll pull that bend out of there somewhat. Hammer the rest of it out. What do you know? The dump trailer is its own frame rack. So we'll let it back down. We'll put our makeshift anvil in here. Anvil Jenga, I guess we're playing. So we can hammer the rest of it flat. Now that we have our bend in the right spot. Hammer the bottom flat. And we'll hammer the front end. And we should be able to get a spare on here now. So the end of the ramp is bent, so we gotta straighten it out. Probably from when the skid loader fell off of it. One of the times anyway. We'll bend the rest of it down, now that it was flat. And we'll see how it fits. Perfect. So now we're back to the front. We're gonna drill some holes in our toolbox here. We have a bracket that holds that wiring harness when it's not plugged into the truck. That way, the harness isn't dragging on the ground or just laying up on the frame, because they do move this thing with the skid loaders when they're parked on the job site. So if that wire falls down, they tend to tear it off. So if it's clamped up out of the way, it saves me some trouble later. Now since the screws were sticking through, I just cut a little piece of hose off. We're just going to put it on the inside of the screws to keep it from cutting through any wires or hands or anything that might get on the other side of that. So now we can throw our spare up there and see how we did straightening out our bracket. Usually it takes carriage bolts that fit into the slots, and they have the little star retainers that hold that in there. Then you just put lug nuts on. I didn't have any carriage bolts that size, so we just put some regular bolts in there. And then ran the lug nuts on. He always carries tools in his truck, so he'll be able to unbolt it. Now we can fix our convertible toolbox. We'll clamp the hinges back in place and tack them in. The two outside ones stayed on the lid. The center one stayed on the toolbox. So after making sure it opens and closes, we can weld it all in place completely till the next time they jackknife the truck and rip it off. We'll clamp the center hinge up there and weld that up. Make sure it closes and latches. Put our snap-on prop rod back in there. Now to satisfy my inner clean freak, we'll vacuum out the toolbox. Apparently the landscaper buys a 14-foot dump trailer and then transports the gravel in the toolbox. Landscapers. So we'll get our gravel out of there. Looks like the battery was leaking. Probably got a hole punched in the bottom of it from sitting on gravel. Now we can change our drum. We have our adjustable dust cap remover. Pop that off of there. Pull the little locking tab off. And then we'll spin the nut off of there. All with our adjustable hammer. Then pull the drum out. Now you can get your bearing leaf. Get that bearing out of there without getting your hands all greasy. pull the drum off. Get all that old grease out of there. My favorite part, we'll pack our new bearings. I could get the automatic packer, but then I can't complain about how much I hate packing bearings. So one's out of the way. Good thing about the outer one, it's smaller, goes quicker. And with a little magic editing, goes real quick. Make sure it's coated real good. I'll pound our seal back in there. Our special seal installation tool. And the drum's ready to go up there. Put our outer bearing in. And put our washer in there. And the nut. We can get it to thread on. Tighten it down with our adjustable hammer. Click. It's also a torque wrench. Push the little lock washer on there. And we'll pound our dust cap back on. Plug in the center. Put that in. We're ready to put our tire on. Tighten up all our lug nuts. And the painting gnomes were here. Painted the back of this all up for us. So now we can push our little grommets in for our lights and our little bracket that we made. And now we can start pushing the lights in there to feed the wires out to the side so we can connect them. The outside ones are easy, there's plenty of wires. The inside one is just enough for me to get to the edge, so I need to extend the feed wires. They were a little broken. So we'll heat shrink our new ones on there and connect everything up. Heat shrink the rest of our connections. And tuck them all into that little tube, and hopefully they stay there. And that's what the finished product looks like. We'll see how long those lights on the bottom last. We only painted the part we worked on just to keep it from rusting for an extra couple weeks. It's the first time they use it, they're going to scratch it all up anyway. So here's our junction box on the front, our breakaway, and our wire. It's all out of the way. Our non-convertible convertible toolbox, and our spare. Now we do have a light that's out. We had a couple little markers in the front out. They were just 2 wires. These just pop out of there, plug back in, and then push back into the rubber grommets. I went with LEDs, so our incandescent one over here isn't going to match. So even though it works, it's going in the pile. Can't have one LED and one incandescent. So now we have 2 LEDs. It looks like we have this round of destruction repaired on our landscaping trailer. So, it's ready for next season. Now, hopefully we landscaper-proofed everything. Well, that might be a little optimistic. Hopefully it's landscaper-resistant. We'll find out. Thanks for watching. See you soon.